Hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. We're back. We're live. It's another Wednesday night stream. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you guys are all having a good week. As you guys know, on Wednesdays, we talk about real estate. My name is Joe, and thanks for stopping by the channel. And again, we have another great topic for you guys tonight. We're going to be talking about what Zillow says are going to be the hottest markets moving into 2025. So still kind of on this prediction train of what's going to happen in 2025 with housing. So we have an article from Zillow that we're going to look at. And then we also have an article from Redfin, and we have a little video clip. Don't know if we'll have time to get to it, but we're going to get through as much as we can. As always, again, thanks for being here. And if you're watching on the replay, thanks for checking out the replay. And drop a comment. Let me know where you're either watching live from or where you're watching on the replay from. I'm always interested to know what markets you guys are in and where you're watching from. The hottest real estate markets. And, you know, I have to say that when I read this article and looked at this list, I was a little surprised, especially by the number one spot. And we'll talk about that in just a second. Before we get into the meat and potatoes of the stream tonight, I want to take a second. And if there's anybody out there that's been affected by the windstorm or the fires in Southern California, I just want to express my condolences. If you have loved one, if you were affected by them, if you have friends or loved ones that were affected by them, it's a wild situation. I know on the stream we've talked about natural disasters, wildfire, flood, hurricanes, how that affects housing, and obviously there's going to be a lot of people that are affected from this current disaster that's going on. For those of you watching live and on replay, I am in Southern California. I am in Los Angeles County. My wife works in Pasadena, which is right next to Altadena, which is basically the city that's on fire. We have friends and family members that have lost homes. Fortunately, we haven't been effectively directed. And fortunately, I'm far enough away right now from those areas. I'm about 25, 30 miles away from the most affected areas. So right now, no threat to my neighborhood, to my city, but boy, very devastating. And we were just talking about how natural disasters can affect people's ability to buy, sell, and afford homes. And this is going to be a great example. I don't even want to think about the difficulties that these homeowners are going to go through with, police, fire, insurance companies trying to get everything figured out. It's a rough one. So again, I'm so blessed and lucky to be safe and have the power on. A lot of people don't even have their power back yet or internet. And I'm blessed to have both of those things and a safe home. So if there is anybody out there currently watching right now and you're local to my community in the greater Los Angeles area and you need something, and I don't even mean just real estate related. If you need a place, if you need resources, if you need help, please send me an email, shoot me a comment. Heck, you can even drop a comment in the stream and be happy to try to get you whatever resources you need. So, if you're in the area, I hope you're okay. If you're out of the area, please do what you can. Red Cross is taking donations. And if you can just keep these people in your thoughts and prayers, it could really make a difference. So let's get on to the business of the stream. Hey, David, what's going on, buddy? Hope you're doing well. Thanks for stopping by. Hope you're having a good week so far. I'm going to put an article up on the screen here very shortly from Zillow, and we're going to talk about it. But the article gives away what the number one hottest market's going to be. So before we do that, I want to tell you what that market is and why I was so surprised by it. So I would have you guys guess, and I would give something away, but I know you guys could just quickly Zillow. What does Zillow think is going to be the hottest housing market in 2025? And you'd get the answer. But I was surprised, and if I wish I had sound effects, I'd do a drum roll. But the drum roll, to my surprise, Zillow's hottest forecast market for real estate in 2025 is none other than Buffalo, New York. And mind you, if you paid attention to this article, to this release last year, because it is every year, guess what was number one last year? Buffalo, New York. So this is 2 years in a row that Buffalo, New York is predicted to be the hottest real estate market in the United States. Very surprising, and especially surprising because of, well, its location, right? So, pretty severe weather in Buffalo. It gets pretty cold, pretty snowy, pretty wet. And I was surprised to hear that being, the hottest market. But as we go through the article, you're going to see that there's some good reasons for that. And we're going to also cover the 9 other markets plus 3 kind of special mentions where they're not forecasted to be, the hottest markets in the nation, but they've shown a lot of activity over the previous year, and they've gone up in the rankings in terms of desirability of the market. So without any further ado, let's do this number. All right, so make this a little bit bigger for you guys. There we go. All right, so why Buffalo is 2025's hottest market again. Crazy. There's a nice picture of Buffalo. It certainly looks pleasant, right? It's a great picture of the skyline, city skyline. Now, I've never been to Buffalo. I've been to New York once. I went to New York City for the first time about a year ago. Been in New Jersey for a little bit. Never lived back east, never stayed long duration back east. The picture looked great. The picture looks very idealistic kind of, it's got some older, larger buildings, but then in the front there's, this nice big green area with some brick residences. I mean, it looks nice until there's like 87 feet of snow on the ground. But that's just my West Coast mentality kicking in. So again, this article was recent yesterday. Competition among buyers never cooled in Buffalo last year, and that heat should keep smoldering through 2025. Yikes with the fire references. Hot markets spread from the Northeast, Great Lakes, and South regions into the Midwest and West. Virginia Beach jumped furthest up the list from 2024, leapfrogging over 23 markets. Zillow expects Buffalo, New York to be the nation's hottest housing market in 2025, with Indianapolis, Providence, Hartford, and Philadelphia rounding out the top 5. Buffalo is also predicted to be the hottest market of 2024, making it the first market to hold the title in back-to-back years. Relative affordability and supply that trails demand are common threads amongst what should be the most competitive markets for buyers in 2025. And really, that's no surprise. Typically, when we're talking about, the hottest markets for people, it changes all the time. It's hard to predict. There's things that go up and down and around. But the last couple of years, we've noticed that it's been a little bit easier to predict those hottest markets because the hottest markets are the markets that have any shred of affordability or anticipated shred of affordability. So Buffalo, New York being one of these markets that, according to the article here, relative affordability and supply that trails demand. That's the big one. So their supply it's trailing the demand, right? So it's not quite as demand stricken as what we've seen in other markets. So, it's interesting to see that Buffalo it made the list because of sort of its unique location and weather features, but it just proves that buyers will go where the deal is and where the affordability exists. On top of that, there's some other factors. Buffalo is actually increasing in their in available jobs. So they have some jobs going to Buffalo, that mixed with the affordable real estate. And yeah, you could see why that it's predicted to be the #1 hottest market. Nationwide, Zillow forecasts relatively slow and steady growth for both home values and sales in 2025, though affordability and unpredictable mortgage rates will present familiar headwinds. Inventory should continue to recover from a deep pandemic era deficit. And we think that should be true. A lot of the housing pundits sort of are a little, how do I say it? They're a little, the wind is knocked out of their sails a little bit. When we were looking at going into 2025, for about the last 2 months of 2024, we were very, very optimistic. We knew that there was going to be at least one Fed rate cut coming up, and depending on the time, 2 rate cuts. But we knew that there was going to be at least one more before the end of the year. So that was good. We saw, supply picking up throughout most of the country. And we were thinking we were going to go into the year with, 6.3% interest rates. Unfortunately, that did not materialize. The Fed did cut the federal funds rate, but the rate for mortgages actually went up. And again, we've talked about this in depth. Just because the Fed decreases their overnight lending rate does not mean mortgage rates decrease. Usually they're connected, but certainly not all the time. And it's not a mandatory rule. And what we saw because of some economic data and numbers that unfortunately for mortgage numbers, the economy just keeps cooking along. We have a lot of people working, and inflation is, holding steady-ish on the lower end of where we need it to be. And when those things happen, mortgage rates are not going to get cut. So mortgage rates are elevated right now, and that's kind of knocked some of the wind out of the sails. With people's predictions going into 2025, we thought, 2025 is going to kind of be hopefully a reemergence of the real estate market, and it's going to thaw out. It's going to loosen up. We're going to see more people moving. And we still do think it's going to be much better than 2024, but we just haven't got off to the start that I think a lot of people anticipated. But it's only January 8th. So there's plenty of time. Still, there's plenty of time. So here we go. Here's a map of Zillow's predictions for the hottest housing markets of 2025. This probably will look like a familiar image because it's on the thumbnail of the video that you clicked on. So here we go. In the top spot, Buffalo, New York, number 1. Number 2, Indianapolis, Indiana. Number 3, Providence, Rhode Island. 4, Hartford, Connecticut. 5, Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. 6, St. Louis, Missouri. 7, Charlotte, North Carolina. 8, Kansas City, Missouri. 9, Richmond, Virginia. And 10, Salt Lake City, Utah. And we have a couple of honorable mentions here. So these are not slated to be in the top 10 hottest markets, but as you can see here, these are the largest gains in rankings from 2024 among the top 50 metros. So these are the ones that did the most moving. So they're not in the top 10, but they're kind of like on fire. They're making a lot of gains, which is showing that buyer demand is going up in these markets. So you'll see these denoted with the little flame icon. Virginia Beach, which went up 23 spots. Oklahoma City, which went up 21 spots. And Birmingham, Alabama, which went up 21 spots as well. So it's very interesting. If you look at the location, let's just kind of talk about this graphic for a second. And if you look at this map, it's really, really interesting to see kind of the diversity in where these are. Obviously more Eastern, heavy, but we've got stuff in, on the Eastern seaboard. We've got stuff that is in the more Midwest, Birmingham, although heck, and even Oklahoma City, depending on what you classify as. I guess Oklahoma City is probably still counted as the Midwest, I would imagine. I don't know. Do you guys consider Oklahoma to be the Midwest? I don't really know what Oklahoma is. I kind of think the Midwest kind of be this region up here. But I don't know. Do we count Oklahoma? I kind of feel like it's the Midwest. It's kind of like a Midwest state. I don't know. But we have a really good spread. We've got the West represented in Utah. We've got the East Coast represented. We've got the Midwest represented. We've got the South represented, not in the top 10, but with a market that's very clearly showing some activity and some competitiveness. So one thing that I take away from this is that it's nice that at least we kind of have a spread. Now, we know that all along the West Coast that's never going to be, one of the hottest housing markets because it's just so expensive. So hot in terms of value, yes. In terms of sale price, absolutely, but not in terms of buyer demand, just because the inventory is not there. So it's not really giving buyers a real good deal. And that's why a lot of these have been selected, is because these are the metros that are still offering buyers a little bit of reprieve from the affordability crunch that a lot of people are feeling. So if you are a person that has the ability to work fully remote, or maybe you are in a very high demand job that's going to allow you to, kind of find work wherever you can go. Here are 13 great places that you can go if you are a deal hunter. If you're just someone that's looking to get into real estate and look for a deal, and you're not concerned with it being in a very particular area, here you go. Here's the answers to the test. And additionally, if you're someone who's thinking about maybe picking up an investment property and you want to look towards a market that maybe offers, a little bit more buyer flexibility, heck, here's 10 great places to start. Personally, I feel that number 2, Indianapolis, Indiana, I think this is a great market to get into if you're looking for investment. I think Ohio and Indiana and Illinois, I think some of these regions right in here are going to do very, very well in the next 5 to 10 years when it comes to property appreciation and also rents. So not only just from a primary occupancy standpoint, your primary residence, but if you're someone that's looking to expand your real estate portfolio and perhaps look into an investment property, you might want to start with these 10 areas. Zillow's list of the hottest markets is based on an analysis of forecasted home value growth, recent housing market velocity, and projected changes in the labor market, home construction activity, and number of homeowner households. So those are all of the metrics and criteria that they went off for this forecast. Zillow forecasted Buffalo to be the hottest market in 2024, and that prediction proved prescient. Ooh, a new word, prescient. I haven't heard that one before. I'm going to throw that one into the Google machine. Prescient, having or showing knowledge of the events before they take place. Okay. So kind of like an accurate warning is kind of what they're saying. So proved to be accurate. Sellers held a strong advantage in negotiations there throughout last year, according to Zillow's market heat index. New jobs often mean new residents. All right, that's what we're talking about. We're talking about how Buffalo seems to have kind of a push for some new jobs. I mean, that's one of the reasons that is making it an attractive market for buyers. So new jobs often mean new residents, which raises competition and drives up prices unless builders can match the additional demand. Buffalo has the most new jobs per new home permitted, a key component that's kept Buffalo on the top of the list for 2 years running, along with expected appreciation. So interesting. I've never heard of that metric before. New jobs per new home permitted, which is good. That means that for every new job, there's a new home that's being permitted. So someone comes to the market to take that job, they've got a place to live. Meanwhile, Indianapolis' second place rank can be chalked up to its strong home price forecast for this year, which is expected to be greater than the appreciation it experienced in 2024. So yikes, Indianapolis going to be heating up. It's going to be a hot one. And it looks like that they are expecting strong appreciation and price growth. And, I'm not surprised, and especially as I kind of go through the article an additional time and talk out loud, it makes sense that these would be the hottest markets because these are the markets that have been churning. They've had turnover, and it's because they're the markets that offer some level of affordability and inventory. And so I'm not surprised that places like Indianapolis and Buffalo are making reoccurring appearances on this list because it's like, hey, they were affordable last year, and the word is out. These are good places to go to, and that's going to cause these markets to crank up that heat index that we were talking about. And could potentially lead to more competitive outcomes. Relative affordability is a powerful force too. Nearby alternatives to expansive northeastern cities like New York City and Boston dominated Zillow's list of the most popular cities among home shoppers in 2024. Metropolitan areas in the same vein, Providence, Hartford, and Philadelphia, rank high on this list as well. Rising fastest in the ranks from 2024's hottest markets list is Virginia Beach, which leapt over 23 markets to the number 13 spot this year, driven by job growth that has far outpaced new home permitting. Memphis fell the farthest by the same token, dropping 30 places as new home permitting has eclipsed low job growth. Here's a closer look at what shot markets to the top of the list. So what factors really brought these market up to the hot market list? So price growth. Home value growth inched closer to historical average in 2024, only to slow in the later half of the year as mortgage rates fluctuated. While not all markets will see prices grow faster this year than last, all but 5 are expected to have positive appreciation. Home value growth is set to largely level out this year. Even these standout metros look to tame compared look tame compared to the double-digit annual appreciation seen in 21 and 22. And that's one of the things that we're seeing, and that's one of the things that we're expecting in 2025 as sort of a national average, right? Across the nation, what we're seeing is that predictions for home price growth to kind of level out. It's not going to go down, right? The value of homes are not predicted to go down overall as a whole. But what the values are predicted to do are to level out and kind of go up at a slower pace. So over the last few years, home value appreciation has been going like this. And it's been going up and up and up at a very steep pace. And we've been getting these big, big increases, which if you're a seller is great, but if you're a buyer, really sucks because your price of your home is going up. And now what we think is going to happen is we think they're going to be a little bit more like this. Not flat, right? But it's going to go up at a little bit more shallow of an angle. So we're still going to see home prices appreciate, but not at these exorbitant levels that we saw in 21 and 22 and into parts of 2023. It's going to level out and kind of calm down a little bit. And this is good for home buyers because, the bad news is homes are still going to get more expensive. The good news is they're not going to get nearly as expensive as quickly as we saw in the last previous years. A little bit more normal, which, hey, at this point, any help that home buyers can get, I would imagine they should take it. Among the top 5 hottest markets of 2025, only Indianapolis has a rising outlook for home value appreciation, increasing from 2.8% annual appreciation in 2024 to 3.4% in 2025. Buffalo experienced strong appreciation at 5.8% in 2024, but is expected to drop to 2.8% in 2025. Meanwhile, home prices in 2022's hottest market, Tampa, are expected to make a comeback, turning around from a 0.8% decline last year to 2.2% growth projected over the next 12 months. That's interesting. Tampa being one of the Florida cities, it's very interesting. I'm always interested to hear what Florida and Texas are doing. So many people kind of projected that Texas and Florida would really have a tough go in the end of 24 and into 2025 with their property values and appreciation, simply because those two areas seem to be more of the boom town, some of the boomtown areas of the pandemic. And there was some concern that we could see some significant decreases in property value. And we have seen some. But it's interesting to note that in Tampa, which in 2022 was the hottest market, again, pandemic boomtown, right? In 21, we know a lot of people, 21, 22, a lot of people from the East Coast, Northeast, shot down to Florida, and it drove up the pricing, drove up appreciation. And that's why in 2022, Tampa was one of the hotter markets. And then that decline, it turned around from just that 0.8% decline last year to 2.2% growth this year. So kind of interesting to see Tampa make such a comeback. We'll have to see what happens to the other portions of Florida, especially now that hurricane season is over or is almost over. And we'll see if maybe there's going to be an increase in some activity in those areas. It'll be interesting. Inventory and velocity. The inflow of new listings recovered slightly over the course of 2024, but rate lock has kept inventory from rising to pre-pandemic levels. Remember, that's that golden handcuffs scenario that we talked about so many times before. Meanwhile, homes are typically staying on the market longer before selling. It's likely that these low inventory markets where homes sold quickly in 2024 will continue to experience outsized demand relative to supply in 2025. The markets with the fewest listing days per home in 2024, those where inventory was lowest and sold the fastest, were Hartford, Cincinnati, and Columbus, the same 3 markets as the previous year. So very interesting. So the same markets are kind of continuing to move, but at slightly slower rates than pre-pandemic, which again, I was actually just talking about this with a colleague of mine this morning, talking about how she has a listing. It's a well-priced listing. It's a very nice listing in my market here in Southern California. a newer property built in 2014. And it's just been slow. They've gotten some showings, but not a lot of showings. They got an offer, they went into escrow, but then it canceled. And, we were just talking about how her seller is getting a little antsy because the home's been on the market for about 27 days. And mind you, this is 27 days over Christmas and New Year's. And we were talking back and forth. We were talking about how, 27 days is still so fast. Typically on average, it takes about 60 days to sell a home. So, but a lot of people have been, kind of had their ideas modified by COVID, right? Because in COVID, it's like before the for sale sign was even fully straight up in the front yard, the house had set 7 offers or 10 offers, right? And so people got accustomed to homes selling in 3 days, 5 days, 10 days, 1 day, right? And that's not normal. It's much more normal for homes to take anywhere from 60 to 90 days to sell. So while the time that it takes for properties to sell is going up, it's really not, in my opinion, much of a concern because it's going back towards normal. It is not normal to be able to sell a house in 8 days all the time. Demographics. Baby boomers and millennials represent 2 enormous generations, and both are very active in the housing market. Baby boomers are hardly exiting the market as they age, a departure from previous generations at the same age. And millennials are aging into their prime home buying years as they hit their early and mid 30s. And this is something we're going to talk about. We have another article. If we have time, we will get to it. But this is one of the things that is compounding the inventory crunch. And that is that baby boomers, it's true, they're not exiting the real estate market nearly as early as they used to. Before, when you 65, 70, 75 years old, you had already been retired for a little while, probably downsized from the larger home. And, it's a fact of life. A lot of those people went into nursing facilities and elder care homes and eventually passed away. Now we're seeing boomers stay in their home until 80, 85, 90 years old. And in fact, some are choosing to not even go to elder care or retirement homes. They're choosing to age in their home and have the care come to them because those end-of-life care facilities are so expensive. It's cheaper for them to just stay in their home and hire a nurse or service to come in and provide care to them. And that's another thing that is causing some issues with inventory. And like I said, we have an article about that if time permits. In 2025, 42 of the 50 largest markets are expected to see home ownership rise. The market with the lowest lift in the for sale market is Austin, with a trend suggesting the formation of 8.9% more owning households, assuming their homes are available for them to buy. Orlando and Jacksonville followed at 8.6% and 7.8% respectively. Of the markets with negative demographic pressure, Birmingham is expected to have the biggest drop in home owning households, minus 2.9%, then Hartford, 2.7%, and Oklahoma City at minus 2.6%. Interesting, you'll notice that a lot of these areas were also areas on the hot markets list. And part of the reason for that is because, we can see the formation of more owning households. So this would be younger people or more people going to those markets, right? We know a lot of people went to Austin. Austin's a hotspot for younger people, especially in the tech industry. And so it would make sense that those families are forming, and those families are having families, and there's going to be a need for housing in the future. In Oklahoma City, Hartford, Birmingham, all the opposite. They're seeing a drop in home owning households. Not huge numbers, but still a drop nonetheless. Of the market studied, the coolest metro areas of 2025 are expected to include New Orleans, San Francisco, San Jose, Portland, Oregon, and Austin. These markets are characterized by weak demographic and job market pressures relative to the housing environment and flat or falling home value projections, most notably in New Orleans, where Zillow expects the typical home value to fall by 3.8% in 2025. So if you're really looking for a deal, New Orleans could be a good deal for you. Again, one of the major reasons that there's probably anticipated home value drop off is because of insurance, right? We've talked about this in the past. We talked about that those markets on the eastern seaboard and the south where there's a lot of hurricanes and flooding and rain. Well, those are going to be affected by insurance costs. And it is now not uncommon for homeowners to pay more in insurance and taxes than they pay in principal and interest. So they're paying more in insurance and taxes than they're actually paying for the loan on the home itself. Pretty remarkable. So I think that potentially the reason that New Orleans is going to have a prediction of a home value decrease by 3.8% probably is because a lot of buyers are turned off by the very, very expensive insurance that goes with, having to live in that area. So the final index was based on the following data. We kind of talked about some of this stuff. Metrics were normalized given the available metro level data. They're just going into how they kind of conducted this, the methodology, and all of these things that goes into how this study was conducted. So it's just one of these things where these markets, Buffalo, who would have thought Buffalo projected to be the hottest market in 2024 and 2025? And we'll see how it pans out, and there's a lot of different factors that go into this stuff. I know we talked about kind of, with boomers and the reasoning behind that. So we're going to switch over and we're going to share this one. Bingo. So this is from Redfin. And of course, guys, you know the drill. If at any time you guys have any comments, questions, or thoughts, pop them into the chat. Let me know what you think. I'm always interested to hear what you guys have to think about these stats or this information or this data. Or if you guys have general real estate questions not related to this article, maybe you're in a transaction, maybe you're buying or selling or looking for a home, and you've got some questions about something, feel free, pop it in the comments, put it into chat, and I'll be happy to give you my thoughts or answer your question. So more than 1/3 of homeowners say they'll never sell. And this isn't, strictly boomers, baby boomers. This survey is not strictly restricted to their answers only, but this just goes to show the challenges that we still have ahead when it comes to inventory. And I'll tell you that the people out there that are saying inventory isn't a problem, there's a couple of people out there on the interwebs and on YouTube that will tell you that a housing crash is still coming, and that there's this big lie about housing inventory, and there really is a ton of inventory out there. They're just not telling us about it, which is hilarious to me. But more than 1/3 of homeowners say they'll never sell. And so, again, with the inventory issues that we're having, the affordability problem is probably going to remain for the foreseeable future. Many homeowners are staying put because today's housing costs are so high. More than 1/3, 34% of U.S. homeowners say they'll never sell their home, according to a recent Redfin commissioned survey. Another 27% say they wouldn't consider selling for at least 10 years. Roughly 1/4, 24% plan to sell in 5 to 10 years, while just 8% plan to sell in 3 to 5 years, and 7% within the next 3 years. Broken down by generation, older homeowners are more likely than their younger counterparts to say they'll never sell, which is not surprising. Older homeowners more likely say they'll never sell. More than 2 of every 5 baby boomers, which is 43% of baby boomers, say they'll never sell, compared to 34% of Gen X owners and 28% of millennial Gen Z owners. And this makes sense, right? Baby boomers know they're retired. They're in their spot. They've been there for a while. They know they don't need to move. Gen X, thinking, hey, well, maybe at some point we might want to retire somewhere else. I might need to relocate for my job. And then, of course, 28% of millennial and Gen Z owners. Gennial is Gen Z and millennial put together, but you couldn't figure that out. But 28% of millennial and Gen Z owners say they'll never move. And of course, that number is lower because they might have to relocate. Their lives could change. They have much longer on their home ownership journey. 43% of baby boomers say they will never move. That's crazy. I'm going to make this bigger so this graph is bigger. There we go. I think we fit it all. There we go. So share of homeowners by generation who would consider selling their current home within the specified time frame. So here you can see that here's the breakdown of the numbers, and good old baby boomers, look at them. I ain't never selling. You can pry the house from my cold, dead hands. It obviously gets a little bit better as it goes, but yikes. I mean, this is a great visual interpretation of people's unwillingness to give up their real estate. It's really interesting. The survey findings in this report are from a Redfin Commission survey conducted by Ipsos in September of 2024, fielded to just over 1,800 U.S. residents aged 18 to 65. This report focuses on 471 homeowners who answered the question, when would you consider selling your current home? Homeowners aren't just staying put because their home is paid off. Homeowners are staying put because their home is paid off, or they just don't want to move. It's a good reason to not move, both those. Nearly 2 in 5, 39% of homeowners who didn't plan to sell anytime soon say it's because their home is almost or completely paid off, making that the most commonly cited reason. And this makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, if your home's paid off, if you spent the last 30 years or 15 years diligently paying your mortgage, maintaining your home, enjoying it, the last thing you want to do is get rid of it and get a different one. Right? This is why a lot of people, when they get close to paying off their car at the end of 5 or 6 or 7 years, they don't run out and get a new one. They go, man, I kind of want a new car, but now that my car's paid off, I think I'll just keep driving this one because it doesn't cost me any money. And that's a very similar sentiment when it comes to home ownership. Homeowners have paid off their mortgage. Homeowners who have paid off their mortgage are motivated to stay put because it means they own their home free and clear and get to live there while paying only for things like property taxes and HOA fees. Almost as many respondents, 37%, said they're not selling because they simply like their home, have no reason to move, which also, hey, makes sense. Affordability is another major reason homeowners are hesitant to sell. Nearly 1/3 of respondents said they're staying in their current home because today's home prices are too high, and 18% don't want to give up their low mortgage rate. This survey question was asked to respondents who have owned their home for at least 6 years and have no intention of selling within the next 5. I mean, these are all the reasons we've heard before: low interest rates, prices too high, all this stuff. This is all stuff that we've heard before, and it really does make sense. I do think that more and more people could be coaxed out of the interest rates are too high, home prices are too high, if they found something that they really liked or a need arose, and then they looked at the equity that they have in their home, especially since, again, these people have owned their home for at least 6 years. That means almost every single one of these respondents should have like mega equity in these homes if they've owned them for 6 years. That means that they bought it in 2019, which was pre-pandemic or earlier. And that means that they should have a really low interest rate and they should have a huge property value increase in that time. So, of course, these people don't want to give up that stuff. But I bet you when these owners of 6, 7, 8, 9 years realize how much equity they have, their tune might change a little bit. Hey, Innovative. How you doing, buddy? Thanks for stopping by the stream. Hope you're doing well. Do you see how many policyholders that State Farm dropped in the last few weeks in California? What are your thoughts on the effects of insurance companies refusing coverage in these high risk areas? Well, there we go. 1,626 policies canceled in the Palisades prior to the fires. It's hard. It's not good. It's hard because, insurance are private businesses. We can't, it's hard to demand that it's hard to say that we demand that insurance provides a product to people. But on the other hand, it's like, well, that's the business you got into, and people have to have insurance. I mean, if you're a mortgage holder, you got to have insurance, right? If you have a car that has a loan, you got to have insurance, right? So they need to offer some type of coverage. I don't know. It's a tough one. It's a hard one. I definitely think that that insurance companies, if you had a policy in place and your home itself hasn't had any significant or material changes, uh, and that policy has been in place for 2, 3, 4, 5 years, I think that there should be some responsibility of that insurance company to honor that policy. I don't think it's appropriate for companies to just all of a sudden say, we're not insuring you anymore. We're just not doing it, especially if they've been providing insurance to you for, like I said, 3, 5, 7, 10 years, whatever it may be. It's a tough one. It's really a tough one. I see a lot of people talk about wanting to cancel their homeowner's insurance policy when their home gets paid off. In fact, I've seen a couple people mention, oh, you don't have to worry about insurance. Focus on paying off your home, then you can cancel the homeowner's insurance. Well, this is a really good demonstration example of why that's not a good idea. You still have to be covered. It's really devastating. I'll be honest with you, Innovative. I'll be candid. I'll be a little bit vulnerable with you guys. It's a little bit difficult for me to process the question because it is so devastating to see these people lose everything, especially when it's so close in proximity to me. Not Pacific Palisades. That's probably about an hour and a half west of me, but Altadena and Pasadena are very close to me. So it's a little bit difficult to think about the implications that these people are going to face because I just feel so badly for these people. I as a kid, I lived in Arcadia in Temple City, which is very close to Altadena and Pasadena. It's the next couple cities down. And I spent a lot of time in Altadena and Pasadena. My dad worked at Pasadena City College. I spent a lot of time in the Altadena area. I grew up playing golf at a golf course in Altadena that is no longer there as of today. So it's crazy to try to comprehend that. So I know, Innovative, that was a very long and indirect answer to your pretty simple question. I'm having a hard time coming up with a decent answer just because it's just, I can't wrap my head around watching all of these people lose their homes in real time. It's really quite devastating. And to think that those people possibly had their insurance policies canceled shortly before this event, it's another thing that makes my stomach turn. So it's just tough. And I really feel for all those people that are affected by the fires, by the wind, and by the potential insurance cancellations. And hopefully, they'll be able to rebuild and get their lives back. It's tough. All right. Okay. So reasons homeowners aren't selling. Here it's broken down. A couple of these I like. My home is completely or almost paid off. I love this one. This one should be in the lead. I get it. And I just don't like my home. Okay. These two I totally get. 30% for the home prices are too high. Well, I don't know. I beg to differ about home prices being too high. They are high. Don't get me wrong. What is too high, right? I mean, it's what the market will bear, right? So are prices too high? Well, if the market bears it, it's hard to say. And when you look back at how much equity you got, you can put a pretty large down payment down pretty quickly. I don't want to get my low interest rate loan. Okay, great. My children or other family members are still living in my home. Yep. Okay, makes sense. This is the one I thought was interesting. I have given money to children or another family member for their own home, so I can't afford to move. Now, granted, it's just 0.4% of respondents that went with that. But just interesting to note that this is just an interesting snapshot that just goes to show you how, I don't want to say desperate people are, but what people are willing to do to, what lengths that people have to go to in order to secure home ownership is that they're willing to, give friends and family members so much money that they're unable to move. So I thought, I just kind of thought that was interesting. So we don't have time to go through this whole thing. That was about it. Pretty much rounded it out. And I really, I want to leave the stream on a little bit of a positive note. It's been a little bit of a downer stream with all that's going on and what we've talked about, and still, the affordability crunches and all this stuff. So a couple of streams ago, we talked about a young couple that I helped recently buy a home, and how proud I was of them, and how proud I am of them for buying a home and going through that journey. Two young people, millennials, that, one of them has their own business, and they made good decisions. They planned, they were smart with their money, and they were able to put down 20% on a home here in Southern California and buy their first home, all by themselves. And I wanted to try to have another good news story like that one. So we're going to jump over to this one. Here we go. I think we're going to do this one. And this is a news story out of Arizona about how a Gen Zer was able to buy a home. And not a lot to talk about in this story. I'm not going to interject too much. For anybody out there, there's so much about how buying a home is so difficult, and it is. I feel like every once in a while we need some good news stories about people actually doing it and accomplishing the task that is buying a home, especially young people. So here it is.
An unlikely buyer is gaining traction in the Arizona real estate market. Generation Z. I'm Marissa Sarback, looking into the how and why.
I started the home buying journey a lot younger than most people. I was 20 years old.
Brogan McGuire says he got here through hard work and opportunity.
Okay. That is important to me. I don't know if I don't know if it matters to anyone else, but all the time I hear about people that can't afford to buy a home, and they and this is what unfortunately people do. They make excuses. And they make excuses about how it's boomers that are gobbling up all the real estate. It's corporate investors that have bought all the homes and there's none left for anyone else. Interest rates are so dang high. How could anybody afford homes? Student debt has crippled me. Now, listen, I'm not saying those things are erroneous. I'm not saying those things are untrue. Those things are true. But to just say interest rates are too high, I can never own a home, it's all stacked against me, so I'll just continue renting, that's ridiculous. There are people out there that overcome those obstacles. And it usually comes through hard work and opportunity, just like it did for this young man. When these people scoff and go, oh, I had someone comment on that live stream about the couple that I just talked about. Oh, they must have had assistance from their parents. They must have, had an inheritance. They must have something must have happened, right? No, nothing happened. Maybe they just worked hard, capitalized on opportunities, and didn't spend frivolously. So keep that in mind, right? Like, people can do it. You can do it out there. People have done it, just like this guy.
Semester in college, decided it wasn't the right thing for me, got into sales. So I had a fairly robust income at 18, 19, 20 and set aside a down payment.
The year was 2020.
So he tried college, wasn't for him, immediately went into the workforce, went into sales. I don't know what he sold, probably solar or alarms, or who the heck knows what he sold. But right away started making money and started saving money and did the smart thing with it. He didn't go out and, buy a brand new Ferrari, didn't go to Europe for 4 months, saved his money for a down payment.
Mortgage rates dropped below 3%. Brogan decided to take the plunge into homeownership, and he put down just 3% to get himself in the door.
My dad was a realtor for 28 years. My grandmother, bless her heart, is 41 years, still a realtor in the Valley. So I had a lot of context around homeownership and, the wealth building, abilities that would give you.
Interest rates are now more than double.
So that's obviously a good point, right? He had the good foundation, the good education from both his grandmother and his father saying, hey, listen, this is why owning a home is important. This is why purchasing a home is one of the best financial decisions you can make. This is why owning a home sets you up for financial security and generational wealth. And he took their advice and he was able to capitalize on the opportunity that he had before interest rates went crazy. And, he was able to buy a home with just 3% down.
Double what Brogan first paid, but other Gen Z home buyers are still surprisingly making up a chunk of the buyer's market. Builders like Oakwood Homes, with communities in Surprise and Coolidge, are trying to hook them.
We bought down interest rates. In doing so, that monthly payment got to a point where we were able to take many of those Gen Zers that were sitting on the sideline. In fact, we saw a doubling, twice as many customers that were Gen Zers from last year to this year that have purchased in our communities.
The company applied that practice to communities across Colorado and Utah and saw similar results. It tightens the profit margin for the builder, but they can make up the cost and then some if they sell more homes. Gen Zers and millennials might just be the perfect target audience.
What may be regarded as one of the largest wealth transfers ever thus far in the history of the world, of this large amount of money that these baby boomers have transferring to the next generation.
Financial.
That's a great point. We are slated. I mean, it's going to happen. We're going to have a huge wealth transfer. We have a lot of boomers that are sitting on a lot of wealth, a lot of equity, a lot of retirement savings, and it's going to have to go somewhere. It's either going to get spent, it's going to get distributed amongst the economy, or it's going to be passed down in forms of inheritances and trust funds and things like that. And that's a good point. That money is coming. What's it going to look like? We don't know. Not sure. When's it going to come? We don't know. We're not sure. But it's going to happen.
Financial advisor Marcus Johnson says he frequently gets calls from young people saying they've received an inheritance, a large financial gift, or were the beneficiary on a 401k. Now what?
Pay off debt, to have an emergency fund, and then as your circumstances allow, begin investing and contributing both to retirement and other investment savings.
Those in the real estate industry hoping to convince the next generation to use that money to get into homes of their own.
And that's smart. That's a good. I mean, it's a good advice, right? You get the inheritance and immediately pay off your debt, save for retirement, and start investing the money, and then go buy a house.
There is the transfer of wealth, but there's also generational wealth that comes from what you're building on your efforts. And one of the things about homeownership, it is the biggest transfer of generational wealth is through homeownership.
Marissa Sarback, Arizona Tonight.
So, just kind of interesting. We do have some Gen Zers that are getting in the mix. It's not in major metropolitan markets. One of those was back in Phoenix in 2021, and the rest, like they said, I think Utah and Nevada or something, Colorado, I think is the other one. So it's not a ton, but it's something, right? And they're doing something. They're doing something about it, and it's great that Gen Zers are making their presence in the real estate market, so they can begin to build their generational wealth. Hey, Innovative, you got something else for me? Let's see. 1 hour of overtime a day equals about $5,000 a year. 2 hours equals $10K a year. Be the guy your boss goes to with the extra work. That's how I'm saving for my down payment. Innovative. That's a great way to break it. That's a great way to look at it. And that's a great example. Folks, this is what it takes to be a homeowner. You don't just get to be a homeowner because you're alive. And that's where a lot of people, I think, that kind of sense of entitlement. Yes, homes are too expensive. We need to do a better job at making them more affordable for the average American. But you're not just going to be given a home. You're going to have to work for it. You're going to have to work hard. You're going to have to make good decisions. You're going to make good choices. You're going to have to be responsible and innovative. That's the exact type of thing that, work hard, be responsible. One of my favorite sayings is the harder I work, the luckier I seem to get. It's really strange. And that's never failed me. The harder I work, the luckier I seem to get. And that's a great example of that. Yeah, that's a great way to break it down. Be that person. You don't got to work 2 hours of overtime every day, but if you want to make the home dream come true, hey, that's not a bad way to look at it. Definitely not. Hard work pays off every time. Every time hard work pays off. It never has not. So, all right, guys, we're coming up on an hour. Thanks so much for hanging out. Innovative, David, thanks for hanging out with me. Appreciate you guys. Appreciate you chatting. Appreciate you showing up in the stream. If you haven't already, you're watching, please go ahead and hit the like button. The little thumbs up should be right down here somewhere. You can also hit subscribe. That way you can subscribe to the channel. It's totally free, helps out my channel. And also you'll be alerted for any new videos or live streams that I put out. Again, if you guys are affected by these horrible, disastrous windstorms and firestorms, please, 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 please be careful. Please be safe. Please help out a neighbor or a loved one that needs some help. We are all in it together. And there's a lot of help that a lot of those people are going to need. So please, if you're in the zone, be careful. If you're not in the area that's affected, please keep those people in your thoughts and please try to help out where you can. Everyone, please stay safe. Have a wonderful rest of your week. I'll see you all again next Wednesday for another stream. I'll see you soon.